So to no one's surprise that knows anything about gaming, Dragon's Age Veilguard has been a financial flop. Imagine spending up to 200 million on such a game. But the Barney, the friendly dinosaur sponsored "Don't forget your pronouns before you hit the book twice" classroom video game would have been saved by one thing, according to EA's, that's Electronic Arts, current acting CEO, Andrew Wilson. And that's right, it seems they've learned nothing: live service. If it was a Concord or an Anthem, it would have made a difference and been successful. Of course, it's no wonder these companies are losing millions and millions upon millions of dollars. Now, I'm no CEO, but I'm pretty sure that's not the reason that a game filled with ugly characters, cringy dialogue.
So, I'm non-binary.
Who the f*** starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
Mass story according to most people, and very strange gameplay decisions would not have been saved by becoming a live service, always online game. That's kind of the problem right now, is that all these CEOs that are running these big publishers and big studios think this, despite the fact that there's many problems with not only the Dragon Age series, but BioWare and the way publishers like EA approach making games. Let's discuss what the issues are and what we think would actually solve the problems with the big AAA $200 landfill site of garbage selling games. So in case you don't know the story, reading from the article here, one of many of the articles on this whole controversy now is that the CEO, Andrew Wilson, has mentioned previously for EA in a financial call, that's where they try and please their people that pay their bills per se, as opposed to the players, I guess, in some ways, the stockholders and such. In order to break out beyond the core audience, games need to directly connect to the evolving demands of players who increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement alongside higher quality narratives in this beloved category. What is this guy talking about? So obviously shared world features implies, an ideology of some persistent world features. So basically like, think Suicide Squad, or even Anthem, right? Those were massive successes, obviously. Now, currently, apparently on the last 12 months, their live services are 74% of EA's business. I'm guessing they're talking about a lot of things like FIFA, because FIFA's in itself, or used to be FIFA, now it's EA Football. Stuff like that, and loot boxes and so forth are their bread and butter. But obviously, that's one type of experience. So there's a little bit of reading in between the lines of what's been said here that is concluding that they're talking about live services, games that are always live, always on, don't work if you're not connected to the internet, various weekly challenges, just basically nonsense. If you like that sort of thing, it's usually repetitive and doesn't have much storytelling at all. It's usually nothing like a single player experience, certainly nothing befitting of a Dragon Age from its humble and brutal Game of Thrones-like beginnings of Dragon Age Origins, as an example. We've come a long way from that kind of experience, and no online service would fit this game. And in that point, you'd almost ask yourself, why even call it Dragon Age? Just call it something else, or make it a completely separate game at that point. But that's the main story of the controversy. Now, it's needless to say that this has been responded to by ex-EA/BioWare developers and creators alike with just shock at the kind of ineptness of this whole ideology, with former Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw responding to the fact that he would more likely quit than ever change a single player IP like Dragon Age into a multiplayer game, as this financial call from the CEO suggests in terms of what he thinks has made the game a failure. Pretty crazy. So this is one of the dumbest takes that you could ever hear. And when you hear this from the CEO, it makes sense why these games are flopping a lot. When these guys are spending 200 million or up to 200 million on something they don't clearly even believe in, much less. Oh my God. All right, so let's back up why this is a ludicrous, insane, non-gamer person idea. This is exactly why so many of these people are in trouble. So let's look at the successes and flops of this. This is just a few of them that I could find with some quick research here. There's a few. So obviously later successes would be things like Helldivers 2, Apex Legends, League of Legends, Wild Rift. I don't even know what that is, but that's in here. We also have obviously Marvel Rivals, which is probably making them all wet themselves and have to replace their pants regularly, seeing the cash that thing's probably making right now. I mean, those are the kind of the winners. But let's look at the loser list here, which is far more extensive. We have obviously Concord, one of the biggest flops ever, that was shut down just 2 weeks after launch in September of 2024 due to just nobody playing it. I mean, that was a live service, free-to-play game that wasn't even free to play because you had to pay for it as well. Yeah, that went well. Suicide Squad, already mentioned. Killer Justice League, one of the most boring games ever made, ever in life. Even if you take out the live service, it's still the most boring thing ever. And it's the type of games that's for those addictive personalities that want to do too much thinking and just want to play things that they shouldn't be playing ever in their life and should be demanding more from their gaming as much as their life. One of the most boring things you'll ever watch or play is Suicide Squad, the Killer Justice League, more like kill the game. The day before, the day before, was that even a video game? I'm still not sure on that one, but yeah, that one was a meme. I think that was pulled off for like 2 days. Was it 4 days apparently? Yeah, 4 days. December 7th, 2023. That was a good Christmas present, that one. Babylon's 4, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. So that one shut down. I think even, it's not in my list, but I think isn't Foam Stars pretty much shut down? There's like no one playing Foam Stars. That's another flop for Sony right there as well. Hyperscape, what's that? Don't know what that is. Battle Royale of some kind. It was by Ubisoft. 2020 to 2022. Radical Heights, don't know what that is. That flopped as well. And there's some more. It goes on. I believe there is more on my list here, right there. I got more for you, I think. Marvel's Avengers. Yeah, that was fun. That was another boring Suicide Squad type nonsense. There was another one that comes to mind, but there's also now Multiverses. Multiverse is actually one of the good ones. It's not completely shut down, but it struggled to maintain its player base and went on to indefinite hiatus in June 2023. It's also, I think they've confirmed that it's going to be shut down now, Multiverses. So that one's another flop, and that one's actually one of the good ones. And then finally, of what I could compile for this list, in case you're not quite convinced that a live service, Dragon Age, Veilguard, the Purple Guard, the Pronoun, whatever you want to call it, would not help, is Anthem. That's right. When did they even make that thing? Oh, wait there. There's also X-Defiant. It's another Ubisoft one. X-Defiant. That one's kaput as well. That's a flop. There's just so many of them. If you got any more in the list, guys, that I'm missing, put them in the comments. I'm sure I'm missing more. But Anthem, that was developed by BioWare, the same studio in question here. Obviously published by EA. It was February 22nd, 2019, and it pretty much stopped of 2021, February 2024, and no one was playing it anyway. And they had technical issues, lack of engaging content, and failed to meet player expectations. That was BioWare's first multiplayer thing, and they haven't learned from that. Apparently, they still want them to make more stuff like that. So it's like lessons are not being learned here. There's so much evidence that for every Marvel Rivals success story and Helldivers 2 success story, there is 3 to 5 X-Defiants, Anthems, and Suicide Squad kill this crappy game. I know what you're asking yourself and thinking at this very point right now. And the question you're asking yourself is, how do I support this type of content? Well, it's easy. You caress the subscribe or follow button, depending on where you're watching. And then you can, well, don't smash it. Just tap the like button, because other people need to use that thing. And then you'll let the algorithms know that you want more of this content, in addition to watching enough of it for that to be even relevant. So I thank you for doing all those things. Now back to the video, maybe. So people can often say in this scenario is that, why don't they just do the same as Larian? And, it's not a terrible idea. But one of the things that people forget to mention when it comes to Larian is the fact that they pretty much crowdfund their games. They don't make them typically off their own money. They very much do the Kickstarter type system. It's what they did with Original Sin in 2014. And then with Original Sin 2 in 2017, both via Kickstarter. First raising $150,000 and second one raising $2 million in funding. Obviously, that's a big departure from the hundreds to 200 millions that they're spending on these massive AAA flops, as it were. However, they bucked that trend with Baldur's Gate 3, where they didn't exactly crowdfund it, but they did use early access and then feedback from the community as a kind of what we'd call hybrid crowdfunding, so to speak. So is this something that the likes of EA could look at doing and so forth? Well, let's discuss that. Now, bear in mind that obviously Larian don't have shareholders per se. They do have Tencent have a 30% stake. I think Tencent have a 30% stake in everything at the moment, don't they, including the moon. But apart from that, it is owned by the CEO Sen and his waifu, behind every great man, as they say. And obviously the costs versus the profits are a little bit different. In fact, I think Larian was reporting loss, a small loss in as only far back as 2022. So it's still not a guarantee that it works, but at least you have much more of a better idea with a system of what your fans who are meant to buy the thing actually want. So let's go into the actual solutions that could solve this problem of games like Dragon Age: The Veilguard from flopping, and solutions that don't, you won't be surprised to know, involve any kind of live service per se. I mean, just look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Yeah, that game would be so much more successful if they had a live service, right? So what's the actual solution to making games like Dragon Age: The Veilguard in 2025, 2024 and beyond, and not losing 100, 200 million and mass layoffs as a result? Well, I think the industry as a whole needs to change what it's doing and how it's doing it. I got a couple of ideas of what solutions I think would fix it, and I'd be interested to know you guys' thoughts and what you think the industry needs to fix the problems that it's facing with mass layoffs across the board in the AAA and AA scene. Specifically, it's happening just in general. Seems to be definitely more games than there is time to play them and need for them in many a way when you think about it. But the first solution would obviously be the Larian approach, which is the crowdfunding. Now, this would be a little bit more trickier if you're an EA and you've got perceived to have, you know, masses of hundreds of millions of dollars, as opposed to maybe Larian's 200 to 400 million turnover here in terms of, well, gross profit before taxes and so forth. Obviously, EA would be considered way more in the billions probably, with just the likes of FIFA, EA Football Club alone. But crowdfunding can also mean early access. I think that the days of spending 100, 200 million on a hit and hope are pretty much all but gone. It costs way too much now to do things the way they used to do back in the day when a game cost $100,000 and you just needed a lead guy or gal with an idea and see what happens. Now it's $100 million, $200 million risk, a $200 million punt. It's pretty crazy to even do that when you think about it in those terms. Being fair to anyone pushing that kind of money. I like a big AAA experience just as much as the next guy or girl, but still, even I think all of us can agree that that is way too much now to be just doing a kind of out of nowhere release and hoping that it works out in the modern era. It's just way too much money and way too much risk considering how much things are coming out and how much competition you'll have for any given date that you pick to release any game in any month. So a crowdfunding approach like a early access, or just getting the community involved more in what they want, especially from classic IPs as well, especially when you've lost all of your key creatives and key writers and key staff in the team. You really do need to encourage and get the aid of the community to really tell you what's what and what's up and what's down, what they want and what they don't want. And it's a good way of making you accountable, as well as getting the community as a whole involved and feeling like part of the process, which is what Larian does really well with their design ethos. Now, whether they'll be able to continue to do it the way they're doing it, as they continue to hopefully succeed in the way that they're approaching it, maybe that approach will change and they'll find themselves in the same challenges that the likes of EA and maybe even some degree CD Projekt Red and so forth here and there have found themselves, should they falter in a release or just find that the costs are getting more and more riskier for what they're trying to do without getting that funding from the players or the potential players first. That's one approach. I mean, like an early access or a Kickstarter. Probably Kickstarter is not going to be possible because you'd have to be a dummy company or something. I think people get very angry with EA, but something that involves the community, you know, rather than just trying to guess what people want and putting in your own politics and all this kind of weird stuff. I think all that kind of politics stuff, you know, sexuality politics and identity politics is a very expensive and very foolish thing to mix in something that is meant to be entertainment and fun that you're taking a guess at rather than knowing exactly what your community wants. The second solution, which I actually didn't even have written down but just remembered, is the idea of actually getting development costs down, but obviously in as ethical and as moral way as you can. And apart from the aforementioned solution, which is developing less blindly and getting the community involved from the beginning, I think we need to look at ways to get the costs of game development down. As much as people will kind of frown or freak out at the idea of things like AI and modern technology and so forth, if it can be done ethically in a way that doesn't necessarily lose jobs and make it so that it's possible to develop more or more quality for less effort or less time frame, I think that's the thing that's the game development industry is going to need, especially when it comes to AAA experiences. Less reinventing the wheel, more templates, more macros, and therefore higher turnarounds. Now, I don't know exactly what technically it looks like. I don't know how far that goes. And obviously, it's going to be a balance of doing it in such a way that it benefits projects and people and doesn't overshadow the thing or become a controversy, which could become a problem again. I can just imagine the cynicalness and anger of people if they heard that EA was using some kind of AI to lessen development, especially after laying off a bunch of people now. But if it's handled right, just like any technology, even like things like NFTs and so forth, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's how people are using them that's going to be the problem, because this technology is going to probably be necessary for certain things in our modern era of not being able to distinguish between real thing and AI thing. You're going to need something like an NFT technology, which is just basically a more advanced form of email that kind of goes with you and can be exchanged as an existing entity that can be exchanged or sold between places. Think of it like how Steam is now, but except for instead of those games being just locked to an email address, it's locked to their own separate digital identity, in the way that you have like a phone that belongs to you that you can sell. It'd be the same thing with a digital thing, a kind of a proof of ownership, a physicality for the digital. That's what NFTs are essentially. But like any new technology, the criminals and the thieves take advantage of it first and then overshadow the whole thing, and then that becomes the public opinion. That as soon as they hear the word, it becomes a bad word, like the C word when it comes to health. So if they can find a way to manage the moral outrage, do it morally, and find ways to shorten development without shortening the staff, lessen the costs, whether that be through technology, talent, and tools and so forth, that's going to be a key thing. They're going to have to drop this 200 million average, that seems to be the case now, that I'm seeing quoted all the time, and get it down to something like anything from like, I would say 50 to like 90% of that cost somehow. And then that would really help. It would allow people to take more risk in the industry, but also make the risks themselves less risky while still enjoying similar return when a game is successful. So I think that's the second potential solution that does not involve a stupid live service that nobody asked for, in the words of, was it Adam Jensen, Deus Ex? Forget his first name. It's definitely Jensen though, right? Next solution, I think, for games like Dragon Age, I was almost going to say Inquisition then, the Veilguard. Is it this Veilguard or the Veilguard? I don't even know. Veilguard or the Veilguard. I would say the hybrid multiplayer. Now I say this because I and my boys at the time were addicted to Mass Effect's multiplayer. That's Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. In fact, I still to this day have not finished Mass Effect 3's campaign because of that freaking multiplayer. That thing kept us hooked for at least 18 months or so. Just a really clever addition to the game that not only solved the needs of EA for profit for their shareholders by having very optional loot boxes, but also those loot boxes were in a game that had a system of unlocks that didn't affect players because you're playing with other players as opposed to against. So it has the benefits of not just being a skins fest, because I don't care about skins personally, but having abilities and weapons unlocks, class unlocks. Those were the things that you had in Mass Effect's multiplayer, which made it very addictive. But you didn't have to worry about someone else having something that you wanted to have you, because if you got past the challenges, everybody won with a nice box to open at the end that hopefully got you the class or the weapon that you wanted. They also kept it fresh with things like maps and so forth, and even factions. So it was a really good example, I think, of a hybrid of, apart from apparently the ending, a fantastic IP with, a fantastic single player for the most part, combined with an equally fantastic, if you actually checked it out, multiplayer component that still has the kind of things that you don't like, but at least they're not going to affect the game in any major way. So I think that would be an approach. The problem is with Dragon Age Inquisition's multiplayer, which we tried out, it was garbage. In comparison, didn't really work. Mass Effect Andromeda didn't hit the same way at all as far as the multiplayer either. So you still have to make an actual good multiplayer component in your single player game. And, I think another one I haven't finished is Andromeda, and that's, I can't say I liked the character designs, some of the character creature designs in there, and not having things like the Volus in there, or the Elcor. I don't think the Elcor are in there either. But, some of the classic species of Mass Effect not being present in Andromeda, and then some of the designs likewise in Veilguard just kind of speaks to the problems as well. So they would have to make a good multiplayer in the first place, but make it a hybrid. So that it's not a live service per se, but it has its own side to it as a bonus that you can play that doesn't affect the single player in any way. I think that would be what should be the third solution now. So yeah, more Mass Effect 3 style multiplayer, please. That's actually good. The final thing is a really simple thing, and what the fans would say. I think I speak for the fans when I say this, which is just easy to say, obviously, but just make a good game. Like, seriously, return to the roots of IPs like Dragon Age Origins, and just, I almost said Oranges. So I used to call Assassin's Creed Oranges, Assassin's Creed Oranges, because it was easier for my speech. But go back to the roots, refocus on deep RPG mechanics, player choice and agency, the darker, grittier tone, less Barney the dinosaur purples and hues and those bright colors and weirdness, and back to the gritty, almost Game of Thrones kind of groundedness of what was Dragon Age Origins, and even Dragon Age Inquisition. I didn't play 2, so I don't know about that one. But back to the grittier tone of what defined early Dragon Age games, I would say, is what is wanted here. And ask the fans what they want. Like, actually listen and ask the fans what they want. I mean, if you give people what they say they want for the most part, usually you're just going to have to figure out where you can get some more wallets for the cash. Do these companies not want or like money anymore? I don't know. I don't understand how there is room for some of the politics and what they call it, DEI, and all this kind of stuff that's coming in the games. And people are straight losing money on this stuff, and they're just still wanting to do it every minute. It's really weird, especially when you're dropping 100 million, 200 million, and people's livelihoods are at stake. And maybe stop hiring crazy people. Like, stop hiring crazy companies. Was Dragon Age the Veilguard a baby? What was it called? Baby oil? What's that company called? Baby Charms? Baby something. I can't remember what they're called. Them baby people that teach you how to make boring, shitty, inclusive games that are just inclusive to the point that even people that it's meant to be inclusive to don't like it. But I can't remember the name. It's at the tip of my tongue. Stop doing that. Get people to actually buy games, play games, and like games, and get the people that are the talent. When you've gutted all of your talent out and you've laid off everybody and there's barely anything left but a husk of people that are just working because they need to pay the bills, you're going to have a problem capturing back the fire of the history of your name, of what you purchased. And live services isn't going to be doing it. That's not going to be the solution. So return to the roots. Do the research. What things are successful right now and what things are going to be successful. It's not the Suicide Squads and the Anthems. It's the Kingdom Come Deliverances 2s and the Baldur's Gate 3s and even the Cyberpunks when they're done right. As long as you let them cook long enough, right? So yeah, just make a good game. I know EA, you have the ability because you've done it with like Dead Space Remake from what I could tell, right? I don't know. I mean, I know you want to make money perpetually forever with a game rather than just while it's hot or when a DLC drops for it. But like I said, you've got a couple of options to do that. But at the least, it has to appeal to the people it appealed to in the first place. If it's going to use the IP's name. If you're going to change anything, you can do like God of War and change it in terms of tone to progress with the growth of a character. But you're not meant to change the core of it. I mean, at the core of even God of War compared to the more arcadey originals, it's still beating the crap out of things, rip and tear. It just got more heart, but it's still the same IP and the same core and the same core values. So get the right consultants, stop getting rubbish consultants like Baby Oil, and return to the roots. What do you guys think? What's your solutions? Let me know in the comments. I don't know. So again, I'm curious what you guys think. Do you have any hope for Mass Effect 4 to be anything but garbage? Is there any chance that Mass Effect 4 comes out, any BioWare game comes out again after this? And will it be live service free? In addition to checking out the video on the screen, do me a huge favor and say hi to your mum for me, yeah? If you can.